we are almost at the halfway point of the year, and so far I have read 10 books from my own TBR, which, you know, isn't too bad, better than reading nothing. However, I have added 8 books to my TBR, so we're at a -2. Which, again, at least it's a negative, but it's not great, is it? So in this read and vlog, we are gonna try and get that number higher or lower. It's a negative, so we wanna get it lower, don't we? Confused. Basically, I am going to be reading specifically books from my own TBR. I'm going to try and clear through some books that have been lingering for a while, and I'm going to be using my TBR game to do it. So if you are new here, this is my TBR game. I stopped using it for monthly TBRs at some point last year, but we are going to be using this to help with this reading vlog because I cannot mood read. I read less when I mood read. I need some kind of guidance, and to be fair, this is quite a simple game. We start in the top corner, we roll the dice, move around the board, choosing books as we go until we get to the finish. And normally when I get to the finish, that's it, that's the end of the game. But I have an idea for this vlog where when I get to the end this time, I'm going to randomise my TBR in some way, my whole TBR, either using a spinner wheel or a random number generator, something like that. And I'm going to read a book at random, which is a little bit scary. But before then, the different spaces correlate to different genres that I read. So we have thrillers and horror, romance, fantasy, and other. We also have star prompts, which means I need to pick a prompt and read a book based on that prompt. Technically, this is episode 5 in a series. I don't know whether I can call this a series if I only do 1 or 2 vlogs a year, but I will leave the playlist for that series in the description in case you would like to check it out. But otherwise, I don't think there's anything else I need to really go through in this intro. I am filming this using my new vlogging camera, so if things are a little bit weird at first, it's because I'm still getting used to it. We are going to get into the first roll, and then I'm going to go through some options of what I want to read for that first prompt. Okay, so roll number 1 is a 2. 1, 2, which is thriller or horror. So out of all the genres that we have on the board, this was the one that I was nervous about coming up. But not because I don't love reading thrillers and horrors. Thrillers in particular, one of my most read genres, and I am in the mood for something more fast-paced, but I don't own that many thrillers and horrors, at least not on my unread TBR, because I typically buy them and read them straight away, or I listen to the audiobook through BookBeat. So I think there's only 3 or 4 books on my unread TBR that I can choose from, and yeah, that makes me nervous. The first book that I was considering was Friend Request by Laura Marshall, which is one of the oldest books that I have on my TBR, and I'm not that excited about it because it's quite an old thriller now, and I've just heard very meh things about it. I was thinking I could just read it to get it out of the way, but I don't want to start the vlog that way, so I'm not going with that one. The other option was to read the first book in the Eddie Flynn series. I have The Defense, I think it's called, and the sequel. I love this series, but I started with book 4, and so I would at some point like to go back and read the first few books. I'm just going to view them as prequels because each book does kind of work as a standalone, but because I only recently read a book in this series, I've dismissed that one. We're not going with that. Instead, I'm going to go with The Burning Girls by CJ Tudor, which is another book that has been on my TBR for a while. I think I bought this when it came out, which would have been about 2021 maybe. CJ Tudor is one of those authors that I read quite a bit from back in 2020 or even 2019. I liked her books, which is why I bought The Burning Girls when I think it was on offer. It was a 99p Kindle deal at some point. But yeah, I don't know much about this book anymore because at one point I knew the synopsis and then it just disappeared from my brain as the years have gone by. But it's good to be getting round to a book that has been on my TBR for such a long time. This, I think, is more horror than thriller. I think it was also turned into a TV show at some point, which is intriguing. So yeah, I am gonna make a start on this tonight, and then I will check in with you once I have some initial thoughts. I don't have a lot of free time this weekend in order to read, apart from tonight. Tonight is Friday, just to give you some context. It was my niece's birthday yesterday, and it was also my friend's birthday today. So tomorrow, as long as the weather is okay, I'm going for a picnic around lunchtime with my family for my niece's birthday, and then in the afternoon, evening, me and my partner are going to my friend's for a barbecue. Again, if the weather is looking okay. So yeah, fingers crossed. I'm going to settle down and read for a few hours tonight, and then I will probably check in with you at some point on Sunday. I need to bring you my first thoughts on The Burning Girls because I started it over the weekend. I didn't have time to chat to you yesterday because I was filming and editing my May reading wrap-up, which will be live by the time this video goes live. I never know when I film this type of video how long it's going to go on for. I usually plan about 2 or 3 weeks, but as I was saying, I want to bring you my first thoughts on The Burning Girls. Really liking it so far. I like that it's easy to read, the chapters are short, and it's setting things up slowly, but I'm okay with that when it comes to horror because I want that slow building dread. We're basically following a main character called Jack who has a teenage daughter, and Jack is a reverend or a priest. I feel like it's used both words and I don't know the difference. I grew up going to church. I'm not religious anymore, but I grew up in a church that is not that common in the UK. I'm assuming that Jack is part of the Church of England because it's set in Surrey or Sussex. It's set in the English countryside. Jack and their daughter are basically sent to this small community. It's basically a village in the English countryside where the previous pastor has passed away, and so Jack is now the interim priest or vicar or reverend. Like I said, I don't know the difference, so apologies if I get any of the terminology wrong, but there's a lot of mystery surrounding this small community. Hundreds of years ago, 2 girls and a group of other people were burned at the stake, and then 30 years ago 2 teenage girls went missing and no one ever knows what happened to them. So I like the mystery, I like that it's building slowly, I like the short chapters because it's really easy to read. I don't know if I mentioned this in the intro, but CJ Tudor has spoken at length about how Stephen King was one of her main inspirations, and the teenage girl in this is reading the latest Stephen King book, which I thought was just a fun Easter egg. So this is going well. It feels very nostalgic because one of the first reading vlogs that I ever did, I read a CJ Tudor book. So yeah, it feels nice to return to an author that I did like when I was first starting YouTube. But in terms of non-reading plans this week, my dad is coming over for dinner tonight because it's his last few days in the UK before he flies back to the US, and I'm making lasagna, which I'm excited about. It's not a proper lasagna, it's like a cheat lasagna that I do, but I am looking forward to that because the last time I made it, it was delicious. Then I've got a few appointments later in the week, and at the weekend, as in Saturday come in, Sam wants to go and see the new Steven Spielberg movie. I don't know whether it's going to be the best day for it because apparently it's meant to be 30 degrees again at the weekend. I'm really hoping that the cinema has aircon. I'm pretty sure it does. I don't cope very well in hot weather, as I've spoken about before on my channel. But yeah, I think it's going to be a reasonably chill week, and then date night at the weekend, which I always look forward to. I don't know why I thought it would be a good idea to stay up until nearly midnight last night finishing The Burning Girls, but I did. I finished it. I was so locked in towards the end. I think the last 50% I read in almost one sitting. I took a break to watch Love Island and then I finished the last 30 minutes afterwards. But yeah, this was really gripping, especially the short chapters. The pacing I thought was really consistent. Even the, I'm not going to say quieter moments, but even the parts where you're following character interactions and characters just having a conversation, I still found it all really gripping. There was never a point where I was bored. I love books like this that are set in small communities where everyone knows everyone, and even though the main character is a vicar, I didn't feel like that was the focus of their character. I think them being a parent was the more interesting side of things. The daughter, Flo, who is a teenager, she's 15, they don't always communicate, and I think that might be a little frustrating to some people. I found it a little bit annoying, but also realistic because I know when I was 15, I didn't talk to my parents about everything. This does have some light paranormal elements, nothing too over the top and nothing that to me felt convenient. I don't like paranormal thrillers where paranormal or supernatural elements are used to explain a twist, or to me it feels convenient if it comes out of nowhere, whereas in a book that's a horror like this one, where it's just background noise, it's there for atmosphere or to create these spooky, creepy moments, I'm okay with that. It's a bit like The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. That's one of my favourite paranormal horror books because the spooky elements are just there in the background, and it does create these moments where you feel that sinking feeling in your stomach. There's one part actually in this book where I felt like I was getting goosebumps and I was just a little bit scared. Not the scariest book that I've ever read, but it's the scariest book that I've read in a while because it's been a long time since I've read horror like this this, where the intention is to scare you or to at least make you feel on edge. It does also have some more grotesque and gory moments just to set expectations, but this was a good level of horror for me. It wasn't over the top. I'm not a big fan of slashers, for example. A little bit here and there sprinkled throughout the book, that's okay for me. I do think the mystery in this was also pretty strong. I liked how there were layers and threads to the mystery. In fact, there was different mysteries that were kind of sprinkled throughout, and I was wondering, how is this all going to come together? What I also liked is how it unfolded in a way that felt authentic. I don't like it when you have a character who takes it upon themselves to become a detective. It really winds me up if that is not their job. And with Jack is a vicar. That is their primary job. But if you're in that situation where you've come into a job and the previous person has died, obviously you're going to ask questions about that. I felt like they were curious enough without it edging into unbelievable. The events unfold around the characters, and that's how the story progresses. Really glad that I picked this up because it's reminded me that I do like CJ Tudor's writing style, and she has another book coming out this year, which I can't remember the name of it, but I've seen the cover and it has Stranger Things vibes, kind of that nostalgic 80s feeling, and I'm really intrigued. Also, they have a vampire book, I think it's called The Gathering, which I've heard really good things about, so would definitely like to add that to my TBR. But that does mean I've just dropped my phone. I knew that was going to happen as soon as I put it on this little TBR card. But anyway, we need to pick another book. We need to do another roll. Should have actually done that before I set the camera up in this angle, but I will be right back. I'm just going to do another roll and then I'll give you some options on what I'm potentially going to choose for it. I'm going to hold the camera and hope that it's not too shaky, but for our next roll we have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, which is challenge, and I haven't got my challenge prompts. This is a mess. I am so sorry, but the challenge, if I'm going to be able to open this with one hand, we have, oh, okay, scroll through Instagram. This is actually going to be really difficult because I'm going to have to scroll through Instagram until I find a book that I own that's on my own TBR, and most of my feed right now is Love Island. So this is going to be interesting. Oh my gosh, ML Wong has a new book coming out. What? And it's sapphic? How has this been live for 16 hours and I have only just found out about it? I'm going to go back to that because that is really exciting. But if we carry on scrolling, I don't think I can count this one because this is specifically for The Knave and the Moth, which is the sequel to The Knight and the Moth, and I have got The Knight and the Moth on my TBR, but I haven't read it yet. So I've come across a post that has a bunch of 99p Kindle deals, and The Knight and the Moth by Rachel Gillig is on here, as well as Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. I've had that on my TBR for ages. Alchemy and a Cup of Tea by Rebecca Thorne is also on my TBR. That is the 3rd book in the Tomes and Tea series, so that's another option. Real by Kennedy Ryan, that's a romance that I've wanted to read for ages, and I do have it on my Kindle. I think that's probably the one that I'm going to go for. I'm just going to double check there's no others, but I think that's the one that I'm most in the mood for. I've been wanting to read a romance because the weather here has been so beautiful and I'm just in the mood for a romance. I have heard that this one is more of an emotional romance, but that's okay. I do typically prefer romances that are a bit more hard-hitting and that have a plot outside of just the romance, or if the romance is the hard-hitting element, if you understand what I mean. So yeah, for now, I think I'm going to go with Real by Kennedy Ryan, but if anything changes, I will let you know. I haven't checked in with you for a few days, so I thought we could have a little bit of a chat. I can give you some reading updates and also show you my new glasses, which I picked up on my lunch break earlier. I am about 100 pages into Real by Kennedy Ryan, which is actually only about 25% of the book. This is a lot longer than I was expecting. I think typically with a romance, I expect around 300 to 350 pages. This is over 400. So yeah, it's a bit longer than I thought, but that's okay. I'm not against long romance books as long as there's a purpose to that page count. And so far, this has been a gradual build-up. We're following 2 main characters, Cannon and Neva. Cannon is a famous Hollywood director. He has won loads of awards for his documentaries in particular, but he is currently working on a film which is telling the story of a famous black singer from the 1930s and 40s, and he's looking for the lead, the star of this movie. That's where Neva comes in. So Neva is an understudy on Broadway. She is a fantastic singer. She's very talented, and I mean, you can kind of see where this is going. I don't know why I'm over explaining it, but basically we have these two characters, and it's a forbidden romance because both of them have reasons to not be together. So far at this point, it's mostly been little moments between them where there's chemistry, and it's clear that they're attracted to one another. But Cannon in particular has had a bad experience in the past where he was involved with someone. They were both working on the same movie, and it didn't work out well for him. It's clear that these two are very, very much attracted to one another, and I'm hoping this is handled in, what's the word I'm looking for? A sensitive way, because this guy, he's the director. He's a little bit older. That's something that I like actually, is that these two characters are both in their 30s. Cannon is 37 and Neva is, I think, 30. But she's relatively unknown, and that's one of the things that Cannon has had to fight for, is to actually get her in the movie in the first place, because the studio executives were a little unsure. They wanted someone who had a bit more star power. I think it's going to be a complex situation for the author to navigate, so I'm interested to see how she does that. We've already learned a lot about the two main characters individually, things from their pasts. The book opens with almost like a prologue, but to both of them. So you get a chapter with Cannon at 20, and you get a chapter with Neva at 18, and you see how there's stuff that's happened in their pasts that has shaped who they are today, and I really appreciate that depth to the characters. I'm really liking this so far. I love Kennedy Ryan's writing. I've only ever read one other book from her, which was a novella. It's got to be about 5 years ago now. I'm pretty sure I read that in 2021, and I always said I wanted to read more from her. The novella that I read was a prequel to a series, a duology of hers, and the reason I didn't continue is because I didn't love the way that the novella ended. It wasn't anything to do with the book objectively, it was just a personal thing of something that I thought, okay, I don't think I'm going to want to read about this. This is a standalone, but from looking at Goodreads, there's also a companion novel that follows side characters from this book. So if I love it, then there's more that I can check out. But yeah, like I said, very much enjoying this so far and hoping it continues that way. It is currently Friday evening. Sam usually plays Xbox on Fridays if we don't have any other plans, which is the case tonight. So I'm hoping I can read for a good couple of hours and maybe make it to the halfway point. I feel like I'm still trying to get used to this camera, so if this angle looks a little bit weird, then that is why. Also, if you have any feedback on the sound, please let me know, because I've edited the vlog up until this point and I feel like it keeps clipping. Every time I laugh, I feel like the sound goes a little bit distorted. I don't know if I need to change the settings, but then I don't want the rest of the sound to be too quiet. I don't know whether I just need to do something else in editing. I've tried putting the little fluffy thing on the microphone to see if that helps. So let me know if you have any feedback. Honestly, I would rather people tell me than me continue to just put out stuff that's putting people off. Anyway, I read so much last night. I think I'm now about 60% of the way through Real, and I'm still really enjoying it. I really like the chemistry between the two main characters. I like how there are genuine reasons for them to not get together, at least right now, while they're making this movie. I also like that they're making a movie and we're getting the script every so often of the scenes that are being played out, and it feels almost like a movie within a book. I love reading about characters who are passionate about something. I've been saying this ever since I read Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which isn't even my favourite book by Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I really liked following the process of the characters creating art, and that's what this book is doing as well. We're following these characters as they are making this movie, and it's so beautifully written. I love it. The only thing I want from this final section is I want a little more depth to the characters' conversations or their emotions. It's very clear that they like each other and they respect each other as artists because they are both very good at what they do, but I want just a little more because both of these characters have been through some stuff. The main character has lupus, which I've never read before, I don't think, in a book, so that has been interesting to follow, and I want to see it go to the next step, which I'm sure it will. When I'm reading this book, I get the feeling that I'm safe with Kennedy Ryan. I feel like she's going to deliver what I want. So yeah, I'm very excited to finish this. I might read a little more now, but me and Sam are going out to the cinema in about an hour. I don't know whether I should just watch some booktube instead, but I'm ready to go. I've got my hair curled, which is probably pointless because it's boiling hot today. I'm also going to take a hairband with me because I know that I'm probably going to get too hot and I'm just going to put it up in a bun. But you know, it's nice for the moment. Today has been the laziest day, but it was very much needed after yesterday. And also I keep forgetting I'm going to Bath tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to an author event with Fonda Lee, which I'm really excited about because she's one of my favourite authors, or I should say the Greenbone Saga is one of my favourite series. I don't know if I can consider her a favourite author yet because I need to read more stuff from her, and I do intend on reading The Last Contract of Isako. I'm really curious about it being a standalone sci-fi. I'm waiting for it to come down in price on the ebook. It's not available through my library, I've checked, and I think the ebook is quite expensive at the moment. But the main purpose of this update is to tell you that I finished Real by Kennedy Ryan. I finished this a few hours ago. I read for about 3 hours this morning because I knew I wanted to finish it. And I'm so happy to say that I'm giving it 5 stars. This is the easiest 5 stars that I've given to a romance book in a really long time. And when I say that this is what I want from a romance book, I mean this is what I want. This kind of embodies everything that I want from a romance book. How many ways can I say that? But hopefully my enthusiasm for this book is coming across. I loved it so much. I loved how the characters navigated every situation with maturity and understanding. And that's not to say that they're perfect. There was one point where I was thinking, oh, are these characters just a little bit too perfect? Do I want them to be a bit more flawed? And I think that did come. I think there were occasional moments where, for example, a character was jealous or they were feeling insecure. There was one moment where a character snapped at another. Every time it happened, they paused, took a breath and addressed it and spoke like adults, and it just felt so cathartic. This also has some really well done intimate scenes, in my opinion. I'm not someone who likes spice for the sake of spice, but I thought the sex scenes in this were done really well. The only thing I wanted to mention is if you have any triggers relating to chronic illness, then maybe this won't be the book for you. I didn't expect it to go to the level of depth that it did. There's one point where she mentions taking a medication called prednisone, I think is how it's pronounced, and that's the medication that I took while I was going through chemo. When she was talking about the side effects to it, it took me back there and I could, you know, really empathise with her. And yeah, that doesn't happen very often. There are a few moments where I just really felt the depth of the emotion, and I almost cried at one point, which when a romance book can make me feel that emotionally invested, then you know I've got to give it 5 stars. So yeah, this is probably my favourite romance book that I've read so far this year. I'm so glad that I picked it up. Hopefully every book from this point onwards is a 5 stars. That would be great, wouldn't it? But we are going to do the next roll. In fact, I did the next roll a few hours ago, but I'll insert the footage and then I'm going to talk you through my thought process because we have some options. Roll number 3, we have a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is another challenge. And the challenge, oh, it's blank. Okay, we'll go for another one. I can't believe I've done that. The challenge is, oh, okay, to read a standalone fantasy. So my initial reaction when I saw this prompt was, oh no, I don't think I have any standalone fantasy books on my own TBR anymore. However, Sam reminded me a few days ago, I actually showed this in the vlog. I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw what I thought was an announcement about a new ML Wong book, and it was an announcement about a new book, but that book is available now as long as you sign up to the newsletter. I don't know whether it'll still be the case when this vlog goes live, but as of the time of filming, if you signed up to the newsletter, then you could get this new ML Wong novella, and I think it is a standalone. I'm going to double check. I completely forgot about it anyway when I saw this prompt, so I'm glad that Sam reminded me. However, I have also noticed another book on my physical TBR, which I don't tend to look at often because I tend to read more on my Kindle, but I do also have The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez, which I think is a standalone fantasy. It might be a sci-fi. So again, if that's the case, case, then that's going to make the decision really easy. But I am going to take a couple of days to decide, because I'm probably not going to read anything else tonight, and then tomorrow I'm going to be going to Bath, so I'm not going to have any time to read. I'm working in the morning, and then we're heading down about lunchtime. So the last time I spoke to you, I was trying to decide between two books, and in the end I decided to go with Destiny's Edge by M.L. Wong, mostly because this is the shorter out of the two, and I wanted something that I could finish this week. I went away obviously on Monday, and then I'm going away this weekend, so I didn't want to start The Spear Cuts Through Water and then have to take a break or a couple of breaks while reading it. I feel like that would have affected my enjoyment, so I did pick up Destiny's Edge. I have now finished it and I loved this. I'm still trying to decide, do I give it 4 or 5 stars? This is set in a world that is ruled by gem lords, and they are pretty much what they sound like. They are powerful men who wear gems, and it gives them enhanced abilities. It reminded me a little bit of the Greenbone saga by Fonda Lee, which is ironic considering the event I went to on Monday. It's not like exactly the same, but that little aspect did remind me of it. This, if I didn't mention, is a prequel novella, so it is a standalone. It wraps up in a satisfying enough way, but there is going to be more within this world. You don't get the most amount of world building in this book because it is so short, and it's very much centered on the main character of Chi. So Chi is the 4th wife of this very powerful gem lord, arguably the most powerful of them all. He is known as the champion because these lords want to make sure that they can continue their bloodlines. They often have multiple wives. However, because people believe that Chi's family were cursed, she is not expected to bear children. In fact, they don't want her to. So she has a very different role within this family. And at the start of the book, she is sent to accompany the champion's newest bride to her wedding. Like, she's sent with a group of soldiers to retrieve her from this monastery where she has been sheltered her entire life. That's all I'm going to say on the plot, but I thought this was perfectly paced for such a short book. You have moments of action where I was, sounds really cheesy, but I was on the edge of my seat. I felt so invested in these characters so quickly. I think because you have those bursts of action where it's really gripping, but then you also have those slower and quieter moments where you can see the characters' relationship develop. I loved this. I thought Chi was a fascinating character. It does feel very much like the purpose of this book is to introduce you to her character so that you can understand her backstory. Sangya, who is going to become the 5th wife, she has been sheltered her whole life in this monastery, and it becomes very clear that she has a lot of insecurities and she constantly downplays her talent and her abilities, but Sangya sees right through it. I thought it was beautifully written. This is a slow burn sapphic love story. I am excited for what is going to come within this series, or with the series that is going to follow this standalone novella. Like I said, I wasn't sure whether to give it a full 5 stars. I think the main thing that made me hesitate is that there's a side character who I felt had likeable and also unlikable traits. I didn't think that they were a very straightforward character. I felt like they were quite complex and I had some complicated feelings about them, but I felt like the book was trying to push me to feel a certain way, and I would would have rather just been able to take the time to make my own mind up and just to have that space to come to my own conclusions rather than feeling like the book was trying to push a certain narrative. It wasn't enough to make me hate the book, but just something that I wanted to mention. So yeah, would recommend this, especially if you've liked ML Wong's other books, or even if you've not read anything from her before. I think this would be a good introduction to her writing because it is that little bit shorter. I'm going to do the next roll now. However, I don't want to put pressure on myself to decide right away what to read. So we'll do that now, and then I'll check in with you in a couple of days once I've made a decision. For our next roll, we have a 6, nice high number, 4, 5, 6, which is romance. I don't know how, but I managed to read over 60% of yours truly yesterday. I only have about 45 minutes left according to my Kindle. Continuing to really enjoy this. One thing I didn't mention is how the main character Bree has a brother who needs a kidney transplant, and those parts have made me feel really emotional. This is the second romance book that I've read within this vlog that has really affected me like that, and I'm fine. It's just it was talking about how he used to be super fit and healthy, and then his health declined so suddenly and he's now struggling with depression, and yeah, I could really relate to that. The love interest Jacob is so sweet. I love him. I think he is just adorable. When they first meet, there's a series of misunderstandings where Brianna is not the nicest to him, and he writes her a letter and my heart melted and I thought, oh my gosh, this guy is so cute. And it's interesting because Brie and Jacob's relationship dynamic, it reminds me in some ways of me and my partner, not exactly because this has fake dating and we have never fake dated. Jacob is incredibly introverted and I would say that Sam is more introverted in comparison to me. I still get nervous when I'm meeting new people, but I'm very quick to relax in social situations. The only thing that I'm finding is that because this has fake dating, that it used to be one of my favourite romance tropes. I used to actively seek out books that had it because I think it's just so fun. However, the more of it that I've read, the more I've started to notice that quite often with fake dating, what you get is characters who feel insecure and they convince themselves that the other person couldn't possibly have developed feelings for them. They're just being really convincing because it's all fake. And it really, really irritates me, and it's irritating me quite a lot in this book. And I think I'm at the point where we're getting to what is going to be the third act conflict, and I have a feeling I'm going to hate it. So I don't know if this is going to be like a 5 stars overall, but I've loved this so much. There have been parts that have made me cry, there's parts that have made me howl. Just annoying because the lack of communication is really, really grating on me. And just once I would love to read a fake dating situation where a character is like, yeah, of course they've developed feelings for me because I am amazing. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to have some really pointless and annoying miscommunication because the characters have made assumptions about the other character, and it's just, yeah, it's you can tell it's really annoying me. But I am going to finish this and hopefully I don't hate it as much as I think I'm going to. This is how hot it is in my flat right now. That is actually revolting. It is Tuesday. I am home after a very, very long day. I don't even want to talk about it. It was good. I don't know why I'm starting off on such a negative. We have this team day that we do every quarter because most of my team work remotely. We don't get together that often. So we try and arrange to meet up once a quarter, and today was the day. And it was over 30 degrees and we were sat in a park. We played some lawn games. It was really nice. It was nice to catch up with everyone. But because Sam had the car for work, I walked there and it was over half an hour walk. So yeah, it was quite hot when I got home. I had my sunglasses, I had my hat on, I had my water. I was as prepared as I could be. I literally layered myself with Factor 50, but I still got home and thought, I don't want to leave the house again today if I can help it. So I am going to settle down and start a new book because I finished Yours Truly last night, and I'm going to give this 4 stars because I didn't love the ending. As I think I mentioned, I disliked the third act conflict. I understood what the author was going for. Both characters have things from their pasts that have shaped who they are and how they act in a relationship. The female main character in particular. And so I understood what the author was trying to show with trauma and trying to overcome trauma, but to me it just felt very rushed. I had about 20% left of the book the last time I spoke to you, and I couldn't believe how much was crammed into that last 20%. I think it should have been more spaced out. I don't think I would have liked it even if it had been spaced out, but still it's a shame because I loved the rest of the book. It was just that last, I would say 30%, because the miscommunication or the lack of communication, the way the characters were making assumptions, it really, really wound me up. I mean, it was a little bit cathartic when they finally had a conversation, and I thought, okay, we're back on track. I like this. But then something else happened, and I thought, seriously, is this what we're doing? But it hasn't put me off from reading anything else by this author. I'm still going to pick up Just for the Summer, I think, is the third and final book. I'm really excited about that one because just the synopsis, it sounds really intriguing. It's about 2 people who typically, the people that they date, end up to go on to meet their forever person after breaking up with them. So they decide to date for the summer in order to cancel each other out. It sounds really, really fun. Obviously, that does mean that I need to choose another book, so I need to do another roll. And full disclosure, I did this roll the other day because I wanted to know how many more rolls I was realistically going to have before wrapping up this vlog. So I'll insert that footage now, and then I'll pop in and tell you what the plan is. Okay, so if we get a 4 or higher, then this is going to be the final roll, and it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as you will have seen, we have now escaped the board, and I was thinking, I think I talked about this at the start of the vlog, I was thinking about randomising my entire TBR. However, that sounds scary, and I don't want to do that. So basically what I decided to do the other day is I chose 10 books that are on my TBR that I'm in the mood to read. I put them into a spinner wheel, and I will put that spinner wheel on the screen so you can see. We landed on Tea You at the Altar by Rebecca Thorne. This is the 3rd book in the Tomes and Tea series, which is a cozy fantasy series that I have been really enjoying, and I like the idea of continuing a series. That's one of the reasons why I put this on the spinner wheel. And then I also chose some books that have been on various other TBRs that have been on my Kindle for a while. I only really chose Kindle books, which I've just realised maybe I should have chose some physical books, but I'm not really in the mood to read physical books right now. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe everything is, I'm blaming everything on the weather right now. I have it ready on my Kindle. I only have 10% battery left, so I need to wrap up this clip, but hopefully I will check in with you in a few days and give you some initial thoughts and feelings. So I've passed the halfway point in Tea You at the Altar, and I'm actually really surprised by how much I'm enjoying this. I don't know whether I should be surprised, because even though I enjoyed the first book and gave that 4 stars, the second book I gave 3 stars. I thought it was just okay. So I went into this thinking, if I like it, then I'll read the 4th and final book. If I don't like it, then I'll just DNF the series. But I am really enjoying it. I think it helps that we're back in the small town setting. So if you don't know, this is a cozy fantasy series, and in the first book we're introduced to this world where you have this one country that is ruled by not an evil queen, but a queen who isn't very nice. And one of the main characters, Raina, was a Queen's Guard. At the start of the first book, she decides that she's done with that job. She decides to run away with her girlfriend Chianthe, who is the most powerful mage in all the land. They decide to move to this small town and open a tea shop that is also a bookshop. The first book is about them setting up the business, and we're getting to know all of the characters, all of the people who live in this small town, but it also sets up these other plot lines that are kind of overarching throughout the series. So I do think this is a series that you have to read in order. I think the main issue that I had with the second book is that it moves away from the small town setting and it feels more like an adventure, and I don't really like adventure fantasy, especially when it's cozy, because the whole point of reading cozy fantasy is I don't want there to be stakes apart from personal stakes to do with the characters. And I think when you've got an adventure type story, then there are situations where the characters are in in danger, and I just don't believe it because I know that they're not actually in danger. It's just manufactured for the purpose of the story. But in this third book, we go back to this small town setting, and the community are preparing for a wedding. But then there's also some of the stuff that's going on to do with the politics of the world, and this also goes a little bit into the religious elements of the world and faith, which I wasn't expecting. One character in particular is questioning their faith. There are some interesting elements, and like I said, I enjoy being back in this small town setting. With the first two books, one thing that I struggled with is I felt the character voices were too similar, because you do get Raina and Chianti's perspective. I really like, actually, one thing I do love about this series is that this couple is an established couple. They met before the start of the first book, and we are seeing them navigate different situations together, and I think they have really healthy communication. They understand each other. In this particular book, I am finding that the character voices feel distinctive enough. I don't know whether it's the writing that's evolved or whether it's because it's the third book in a series and so I'm a little more familiar with these characters, but I can identify different personality traits that they have. For example, Chianti is a bit of a joker, and she loves a good pun, as you may have gathered from the titles of these books. That's all led by Chianti. She is the one that's a little less serious. Not that Raina is the most serious, but she is a bit more grounded, probably because of her background being a swordswoman. Raina also sometimes has to deal with some insecurities within the relationship because Chianti is the most powerful mage. She is known throughout the land, whereas Raina sometimes questions her own contribution to the relationship. Chianti doesn't think this, it's more coming from Raina, but it's not super in-depth. This is very much easy reading and I like it. So yeah, I'm hoping that I can finish this today. It's actually Sam's birthday today. I've booked half a day off work, not that we're doing anything today, we've got plans at the weekend, but I am also going to get my hair cut soon and I'm dreading it because I'm sweating filming this and I walked outside earlier to take the bins out and it was not a fun time. It is, I think, about 29 degrees in the apartment right now, and I can imagine if you don't live in the UK, you are probably fed up of hearing us complain about the weather, but we are a country that is not set up for temperatures like this. But like I said, I am hoping to finish this final book for the vlog tonight, and then I can wrap up this vlog tomorrow, and you will see it this weekend. I feel like I have been filming this vlog all month because I have. I just filmed this entire update only to realise that I didn't have my microphone switched on. So we're going to try this again. I meant to take my hair down to show you that I did get my hair cut yesterday. I got to my hairdressers and realised that they don't have aircon, which was an experience. I need to bear that in mind for next time I get my hair cut, but I just had a little bit of a trim and some shaping around the front. I have my friend's wedding next month where I'm a bridesmaid, so I didn't want to get too much cut off because I've got to have my hair up, and I'm going to be grateful for that if it is still this hot in July. I'm hoping it's not, but you never know with the great British summertime. It has a tendency to be unpredictable. But the main reason for this update is to give you my final thoughts on To You at the Altar, because I finished this last night and I enjoyed it. I think it's my favourite book in the series. I'm going to give it 4 stars. The main reason this series isn't 5 stars for me is because I don't always love the humour. I find it a little bit cheesy and corny. I think humour is so subjective, and I prefer humour that's a bit more dry and sarcastic and witty, and this feels more like a sitcom, except it's set in a fantasy world. But you know where characters do something or they'll say something and you'll think, okay, that was meant to be funny, and I don't know if it was. I think I just prefer more subtle humour, but it's still really enjoyable. Actually, this third book ends on a cliffhanger, so I would like to get to the 4th book reasonably soon. I would say that you could comfortably read the first 2 books as standalones, but the third book focuses much more on the wider plot and the wider things that are going on in the world. I actually think this could have been a trilogy trilogy. I'm surprised that it is 4 books. So that's why I'm curious to see what book 4 is actually going to be about. I have actually been making a mental list of all of the series that I only have 1 more book left to complete those series. And I'm thinking about doing a reading vlog over the summer where I try and get through some of them while my enthusiasm is still high. I don't know if it's just me or if anyone else has been doing this if you live in the UK, but every single day this week I have been checking the weather forecast to try and plan my life, because I need to film videos and I can't do it when it's this hot. It is 30 degrees in my flat. Even if I were to wake up early or to stay up late, it's still too warm. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to film this weekend, because I have my summer TBR that I want to film and I have my mid-year book tag that I really want to film. I'm pretty sure it's like a tradition now where whenever I film the mid-year book tag, it is boiling hot. It's just that time of year is when I need to film it. My brain is switched off, so I'm going to wrap up this vlog here before I keep on rambling. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, let me know if you do have any feedback on this camera or on the microphone in particular. I think I've changed some of the settings to make it a little bit better. I turned down the gain, which should hopefully help. But yeah, if you have any feedback, please let me know. But otherwise, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Click subscribe if you would like to see more videos from me, but otherwise I will see you next time. Bye.